This was absolutely the best thing on the board gaming scene in July. I will fight you in the comment section to prove you wrong. Hey, it's Chris. So, best of July 2024. Things I played, highs and lows, newses, crowdfunding campaigns, hotness, all rolled into one for me. You ready? What made the biggest waves out there, right? Where were things at? How do we feel about them looking back already at last month? So, let's go right into it, right? Crowdfunding. Crowdfunding. Absolutely the best thing of the month. Absolutely, for me, DC United. Now, that's going to be divisive, right? People are going to look at that, and again, self-included, hypocritical, right here. Exclusivity. CMON still doing the crowdfunding gameplay exclusive situation, right? For a long time, people have just gotten away from it. They're one of the few companies that still does it to a significant degree. You know, promo packs aside, convention promo packs aside, that's going to be in August. But that's going to be the sort of make it or break it for a lot of people, right? And for a lot of people, they've said, break it, right? Screw it. And this is the system for me that I just absolutely love, right? With DC United. The bigger question that I still, worry about with this one, as someone who is looking at getting a majority of it, I can't tell you I'm getting all of it, but looking at it and going, when I get my multiverse pledge, still don't have it at the time of me filming this in the middle of August. How compatible is all this stuff going to be? Is there going to be power creep? Is it really going to work? Cross-system DC Marvel, right? It's what comic book fans want. It's sort of why AEW and WWE will never, mix and mingle, right? Because if you've got Superman fighting Iron Man or Batman fighting, I don't know, whoever you want, right? Each side is going to be like, well, my side has to win. And that's not really totally relevant in this scenario, but it's more like, are some of the heroes on this side going to be as compatible with the villains? Are the villains on this side going to be compatible with the heroes, in the sense that sort of like the Spider-Geddon expansion, where some of those are so fine-tuned for the specific hero, villain, whatever they need to go up against, thematically, but also sort of niche-wise as well, that it's just not going to work, and it's going to fall a little flat, like some of those have. And that's my biggest concern. I don't know, otherwise. Truth be told, at the time of me filming this too, there's expansions at retail and core game at retail before I even got my copy. And again, hypocrite in chief, right? I won't lie to you and tell you that I'm not slightly irritated. At the same time, as I always say, I got a freaking better deal and I got a bunch of exclusives, so you can take your retail and shove it. Just kidding. That's a different video. But you know what I'm saying, right? Like, okay, great. You can get it. You can get it earlier than me. Yeah, you can get your retail copy. That's fine. I'm at peace with that. I'm way behind on review copies of things to play, regardless of the stuff I'm getting personally right now. So, whole different side tangent. But then it also raises the question, right? Are you going to get it all? Because they've also not only done the exclusives, but they've done the all-in exclusives with the little Starro, if you will, and the little Batmobile, which, frankly speaking, when I ranked the expansions I was concerned about and questioning and wanting and desiring and mechanically and all component-wise uniqueness, it wasn't near the top of the list. It was, sort of at least half to 2/3 of the way down. But the FOMO is still real. So we'll see. Second up, I have to give kudos where kudos is due, right? This is slamming home a portion of our hobby that has been slobbering at the mouth, slobbering to get more Pavlovian style, and that's the solo community, right? With 20 strong in the Tanglewoods campaign, and the 3 different decks of the red, white, and yellow that you can get with this, set in a Wonderland's War sort of Manny Tremblay style. It's got an audience. Chip Theory, have an audience in that sense, and they raised a freaking metric ton of money. I would argue that this was easily one of their most successful campaigns in the last 2 to 3 years, not named Elder Scrolls. So, you know what? You put out something people love. It's a solo-only game. And I think you get people in, maybe this is me outside looking in, wrong, which is usually the case. But I feel like sometimes solo gamers are like, well, this is not just a solo game, so I'm not just as interested. And reasonably so, right? Because I critique multiplayer games that sort of want to shoehorn in a solo mode in the first place, right? You know, I looked at Unstoppable, you know, earlier this summer. It was primarily a solo-driven game with a two-player tacked-on mode. To me, personally, it felt like that. I'd still like to play it two-player, but you could just see, like, okay, this is really who it's trying to appeal to more. And with this, they've stayed true to that identity. I think you have solo people recognizing solo game and being more attracted to it because it is a solo game first, if that makes sense. Not a solo game and something else, but just purely a solo game. I mean, it's heavily luck driven, which is the other interesting aspect for people that are loving it. I also see a lot of discounting how luck driven it is because you can mitigate, but it's still primarily a draw or roll, and you're kind of SOL sometimes with the game as a whole. Again, I don't say that as a, I don't like it, right? That is a Liege type game in general. So, spade calling a spade here. So that's just the issue, is I seem to see it getting passes because you like it in that sense, where other games are highly criticized for the same issues, you know, speaking of hypocrisy in the hobby. So that has to be thrown out there. The other one, again, you know, wasn't as big for me personally, right? Brink from IB Studios. You know, such a heavy, dynamically based game of the group that you're playing with that may or may not enjoy fully those mechanics of the bluffing, the hidden nature, and sometimes the semi-randomness of what you're getting, just with an overarching you know, basting, you know, like when you baste the turkey in the oven, of negotiation. And negotiation is the crux of that game in a nutshell. Can you negotiate your way out of a box? If you enjoy that and want to do it on a turn by turn, turn by turn, turn by turn, round by round, you can. It's only 3 rounds, but there's going to be a lot of it. And again, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills because I dare say went there and compared it to Catan. Not in a bad way, but as a, you're flipping over these tiles, you're putting your ships at the vertices or the edges of this, a la Catan, and you're getting resources based off of that. Now you have some more control, you have a little bit more mitigation, but it gave me vibes of that, especially with the, you know what? 2 wood for 1 sheep. You know? So that's just the vibe it kind of gave me. As someone who self-professedly, of these hundreds of games that you see around me, and don't see, I still have a copy of original Settlers of Catan, like 4th edition printing. Take that for what you will. It raised a gadzooks amount of money. Just like the last 2 companies here, you know, you're getting a premium versus the first one putting out exclusives. Which is better, which is worse? I'll pose this as the segue between the crowdfunding and the other part of the video. You're paying more money, right? You're paying more money for exclusives, as I said, right? You can get Marvel Multiverse right now, like I said, at retail. You're going to get it cheaper than what I paid for, you know, individual expansion, core game-wise, head-to-head comparison, right? But I'm going to get the exclusives. I'm paying a premium for exclusives. Or are you more okay with paying a premium for a premium product? You know, that's going to segue very nicely into, we might as well go with it because I wasn't planning on doing it. Boy, howdy did it work though. Foundations of Metropolis. One of the better games, one of the best games of the month that I played, right? Foundations of Rome, Foundations of freaking Metropolis. Over deluxeified plastic bling out table presence versus cheaper at retail, no gameplay difference. You know, with the Tanglewoods and the 20 strong. I mean, they don't put out a different product, but you're still paying for a premium product, right? 3 decks of cards for 60 bucks, you know? If this was any other company on Kickstarter as a first-time company putting out 3 decks of cards and some dice for $60, you would hear nails on a chalkboard like screeching of banshees in the comment section, the board game geeks, the social media whatevers, right? It's calling a spade. If you're happy with the company that does that, great. But then don't argue out of the other side of your mouth to me when a new campaign from a new publisher does the same thing. We were just looking at Chicago 68 the other week, the crowdfunding new games roundup. And it's $68. It's expensive as all hell for what they're putting out product-wise. But people are enamored with the theme and sticking with the times thematically. And it's an indie. Again, this weird dichotomy of sometimes indie's okay, and other times indie's red flag. But it's expensive for what it is. It is. I said it on the roundup. I stand by it. I'll, again, fight you in the comment section, if you tell me I'm wrong. But where do you put your money? That's where this is going. And speaking of Foundations of Metropolis, right? Yeah. I said it when Foundations of Rome came out. I said, if this game is that good, you're pricing people out. Again, you're pricing people out of the target value, the target audience. Or where I'm actually going with that is target, right? Too many people in our hobby poo-poo things that show up at retail, not in a friendly local game store, because it's somehow lesser. But you know what? The games that are in places like Target, guess what the reach is? Guess what the sales numbers are comparatively to whatever your favorite game on the Board Game Geek top 100, 200, 500,000 is. Gadzooks more. And there's a reason publishers do that. Because if that sells more, guess what? Guess what? Spoilers. Come closer. I'll tell you the secret. Because then they can make your super niche game in the first place, because they can afford to do so even if it loses them money because the other one is making them a lot more. Ooh, those are words you don't like hearing, but they're true. And you know what? I'm okay with it. There's lots of good games now getting into Target too. Go check it out if you're interested. There's a lot of good, solid stuff over there. And you know what? Truth be told, sometimes the price ain't too bad. Ain't too shabby either. So take that for what you will. The second game, combo. I did it in the combo video. Again, I know it wasn't a popular video. I'm going to talk about it regardless, right? Dodos riding Dinos. Detestable games. It's a fun game. It's a lot of screw you, take that Mario Kart style of things. You roll a die, you play a card, simultaneously reveal. Meh. Most fun game I've had with my kids. Easily this year. Easily. You ever heard a 3-year-old cackle evilly? That's what we've got going on here. And to be fair, it's got a little bit of slight mitigation, slight more screwy take that, as the Dodo Dash version as opposed to the original. So, like I said in my video, yeah, go with a better second edition, right? Everybody's doing it nowadays. Again, Foundations of Rome, Foundations of Metropolis, the Trekking series just got Trekking Around the World, 2nd edition. They're getting out Trekking Through the Parks, 3rd edition this year. So, just like everybody's doing it, right? See Multiverse, see Tanglewoods. If you don't think those are 2.0 versions or 3.0 versions or 4.0 versions, in the case of DC United, right? That's what's going on. So if this is nothing different, it's just different. Then, you know what? Let's go with one of the ones I was more interested by, and I'm not quite sure 100% my thoughts on, but I'll make the argument that it gives me better vibes than the last couple from them, and that's Flat Out Games, and that is Nocturne. Now, it's not going to be Cascadia, folks. It's not going to be Cascadia. Again, I'm not sure if my review is going to be coming out before or after this video, so spoilers, or TL, DR, too lazy, didn't read, watch, whatever you want to call it, right, in the comment section. That I would make the argument it's more fun than a couple of the others like Verdant or Fit to Print, or I don't think it's as analysis paralysis nearly as something like Calico. It's not as good as Cascadia, truth be told. For me personally, I love Cascadia. but I would argue that it's doing enough. But I'm also concerned that it's just not quite doing enough at the same time. Just needs something else. The set collection randomness of some of the tiles you're gathering, a la a Skyrise type bidding, only more straightforward, which again begs the question when I'm looking at my copy of Skyrise, which is doing it with X amount of extra steps as Nocturne, you know, and costs, you know, 3 or 4 times as much. Which one is going to stay in my collection? It's going to be an interesting conversation going down the line here. And I say that as someone who late-backed Skyrise to get in on it. So I got the deluxeified miniatures with the shadow drop or whatever it's called, you know, the painting. And anyway, you know what I'm saying. It's one of those nights. I've been dealing with a migraine all freaking day. So I'm lucky I'm even getting half intelligible words out right now at the time of me filming this. And then the other one, again, sort of have mixed feelings on. I liked it for what it was. But again, it's not my favorite type in the first place, and that was Yonder from Sinister Fish. I think, like I said in my video, people are going to overlook this. People aren't going to give this the time of the day, just like they did with the more recent one, Moon. And then Shut Up and Sit Down said, oh yeah, by the way, Moon, you're really going to like it. And then it sold out. So I could see this having a very, very similar trajectory with a worker placement style of things where you got to feed your workers, you're getting new workers and replacing your old workers every single round, mitigating your tableau and playing on other people's tableaus all at the same time. If you don't fill some of your tableau, it's going to cost you victory points as well. So it's doing things not incredibly unique, but it's doing the thing that we have seen the best games over the last couple of years do, is taking twists on stuff you're familiar with. And I'm not telling you it's going to be one of the best games, but I'm telling you it's going to fly under the radar and surprise people when they actually get more wide availability in that sense. Let's circle back around. 2 other games on crowdfunding. One is Luthier, depending on what language you're saying it in. Paverson Games' follow-up to Distilled. Almost like $800,000. So very, very impressive for a much heavier worker placement with hidden bidding element, again, style of mechanism. It begged the question, when is too much for you? How many areas of worker placement, interactive dynamics, take that deck drawing with some mitigation, as well as your heavy resource utilization, do you enjoy? It's not a Lacerda. It's definitely not a Distilled. And so, do you enjoy that somewhere? Thematically incorporated? Freaking sweet. Ultimately, this gives me very much similar vibes to something like Unconscious Minds from Fantasia. And so I think weight-wise, remind me very similar of that one. Thematically and just organizationally, very similar as well in how my crazy head works. My fear is, you know, looking at final copies, right? Like, I fear that for me personally, with the vast majority of the people I play regularly with, it's going to be too heavy, ultimately, to necessarily be a forever game. Very, very solid, very enjoyable, very which, you know, your boy's not very good at in the first place. But I think, again, people are really going to love it for what it is. But for me personally, it's going to be one of those where I could see myself keeping it for a time, but not ultimately necessarily keeping it forever because of, you know, again, my own issues from that aspect. The ability to get it to the freaking table. Then something that I was a little bit disappointed by, truth be told, right? This was a game that was relatively high on my want to watch and interested in list for crowdfunding in the month as a whole when I was looking at that. And that was Flames of Fafnir from Lucky Duck. I don't know what to say, right? You did the deluxeified plastic dragons. You did like 1 or 2 of the other sort of Fireball Island-esque things with a volcano and another dragon and another thing, a Hydra, whatever it was, all right? So, but I'm looking at it and I'm going, man, you know, the plastic of that, I worry about the functionality gameplay-wise if you're really designing it that way versus if you're getting the cardboard version at retail. Because I've seen several of those things cardboard-wise at retail, like some of the dice towers or some of the trees that you set up. And truth be told, it was sort of like my issue with Kabuto Sumo, if you will. Having a cardboard table with Kabuto Sumo, if those things just didn't go in just the right way as you're folding them in and folding them around, like, it's just not the edge it needs to be. Sort of like Catacombs, you know, the 3rd edition as well, when they had the old cardboard mats. If one of those edges gets just slightly up, it totally screws with the whole rest of the game system. And that'd be my fear with something like this, where you're having a significant dexterity component of rolling these marbles in a tower defense style. If your gameplay only works 100% of the time, with consistency in that way is what I mean, with a plastic version that I'm having to pay X amount more for, I don't know. It might be absolutely fantastically fine, but it also might be a return to Dark Tower for me as well, where I said, you know what, that's really freaking cool, and it's electronic, and it maps stuff out for me, and it remembers stuff so I don't have to, and it acts like an app companion, and it's cool. But ultimately, I just didn't enjoy that. I thought it was just over the top. And that's my fear with this. But again, to play devil's advocate to myself, right? I don't know how else you would make this well and consistent otherwise, apart from the plastic, which is going to give you the consistent molding and the consistent not, you know, being stretched or bent or changed shape. That's going to alter the gameplay dynamics on a not only turn-by-turn game, but after you've played it a certain number of times as well. So those are my concerns with that one as a whole. So yeah, there you go. That is July. My July in a nutshell. Thoughts, comments, questions, concerns? What do you think? Let me know. August is coming. The rest of August. Are you ready? Have a great freaking day. Subscribe. I don't say that enough apparently because, you know, I don't know. I just don't. Apparently it actually gets people to subscribe if you say subscribe. It's sort of like when I mention my Patreon, it somehow gets people to go to my Patreon. But subscribe. I'm done. Peace out. I feel like a shill when I say that too many times though. And by too many times, I mean basically if I say it once, I feel like a shill. So sorry.